back to coverage here at Grand Prix, Oklahoma City. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Ben Sec, and we are ready for round 14. 2 rounds to go here in the Swiss portion, Ben. And our players, as they come in, Julian John is on 36 match points, which means 12 wins and a loss. On the other side of the table, though, 34 match points, which means that there's a draw involved. And as you can see, Seth is 11-1-1. Any take for where this could set them up for potential top 8?
Yeah, I think that usually for Grand Prix of this size, 39 match points or like 13 match wins is where you usually are more or less like in the breakers. And, I think this is only 1,400 players, so I think that is probably the right amount.
Well, you ever watched a mirror match before?
Yeah, you heard what I said earlier. I love mirrors.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Now, this is not a true mirror. You can see it's mono green Tron versus red green Tron. But as you see here, Urza's mine, and then expedition map for both players to kick things off, though Seth, being on the play, has gotten a chance to add Chromatic Star and a Blooming Marsh to his board state. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Tick-tock. That's turn 3 Tron there for Julian. He's got the tower, and he can crack this expedition map and go get the power plant or the mine, whichever one he needs. Yeah, the power plant, and off he goes.
So I think we actually have a mislabeled deck. I think Seth's deck is the green-black.
It's
Tron.
green-black. You are correct.
So we'll fix that up in a second. But, Seth probably needs to win his next 2 rounds. I think John Julian only needs to win 1 of his next 2 rounds. So the way this matchup generally, heads out is whoever gets to Tron first.
Right.
And, John is already basically locked for actually getting to Tron.
He's got it.
But Seth actually played a Blooming Marsh a bit earlier, and so it's going to be one turn later. Now,
yeah, but that matters huge, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Karn destroy one of your pieces, GG. Like,
if John does not have a Karn, Seth is going to have a shot. I think if there's a Karn on turn 3, then he's just not. There's no easy way for Seth to actually kill that Karn, and he'll be back one entire piece.
Well, let's find out. This is the moment of truth here. Yeah, something like a worm coil engine here on turn 3 doesn't look nearly as good as Karn, as of course it opens up the possibility for Seth to just go Karn, kill your worm coil engine.
Right.
Game. So let's see what he's got. This is a big moment here for John. I think his name is Julian John, right? Yeah, Julian John. So we've got that switched on the graphic.
And here he is, Mr. America.
What do you want for dinner tonight, TBS? We got a few minutes to chat here while this game. All right, so in all seriousness, no. Is there a chance for Seth to come back from that?
No.
Yeah, and Seth has also decided absolutely not. And Julian just flips the dice off of the Karn and says, GG, my friend, let's go to game number 2. And that is sometimes how this matchup goes. I'm not going to say it's a highlight of the matchup, but it certainly reinforced your point earlier about the first person to get Tron online is the one that wins. And remember, Seth was the one who was on the draw there. He just was 1 turn behind, and that, well, it turns out was punishing enough.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at their decks, and they basically have the same chance of hitting Tron on turn 3. They have access to the same amount of green cards, such as Ancient Stirrings and Sylvan Scrying, 4 of each, as well as the requisite 4 expedition maps. So there's no kind of like advantage. It just happened to be that John drew them in such an order to actually get Tron on turn 3.
Well, this is a much different matchup here. This is Kassis playing Storm up against Pannone, who's on Scapeshift.
Yeah, I mean, both his decks don't quite interact with each other that much, so it becomes a race to whenever they think they can get their combo set up. Generally, I actually think the Storm deck can go a little bit faster, but it's actually really close. I mean, usually Scapeshift needs 7 land out, but it has like Far Seeks, Search for Tomorrows, Primeval Titans to actually get their turn earlier. But Storm also is kind of a little bit more all in. It needs to use his combo to go off. Whereas Adam, he can actually just win a game with a Primeval Titan by itself.
So Ely cast a Ritual there and then went right into Gifts. Is this the setup?
Yeah, I think he realizes, in this kind of matchup, you just need to race. And he thinks that he doesn't need an extra Ritual on the Storm turn, so he uses it to actually kind of like turbo his Gifts Ungiven, which, is likely to actually give him back at least like one Ritual, and allows him to actually, gain at least 1 or 2 cards.
Now, Adam's got to kind of figure it out, but of course the whole point, or at least one of the big points to this Storm deck that runs Gifts Ungiven, is that he's going to get what he wants, right? That's kind of the deal. It's not just like a value card here.
This is actually one of the cool interactions in the matchup. I mean, looking at your opponent's gifts and deciding what they have in their hand is actually a really, really skill-intensive situation. Ely didn't choose a Pass and Flames, which usually comes out with a Gifts Ungiven, and one of the reasons it's really good is because in the graveyard it's good and in your hand it's good, so it's good in both places, which generally means that Ely's likely to have a Pass and Flames in hand. So he actually got given a Baral and I think another Ritual.
Yep, that's what he got. Manamorphose and a different Ritual, of course, went to the graveyard. There's Baral.
Okay.
So this could be the turn.
I think it might be. I mean, he has at least one Ritual. And, yep, as suspected, he actually has that Past in Flames. Pyretic Ritual generating 2 extra red mana, so 3 total.
Ooh, but here's Lightning Bolt on Baral.
So
how does that change things?
So one of the interesting things, the way this works, is that he actually has to use not the red mana from the Priority Ritual to actually cast his Manamorphose. Now, it might be
which cost him a life, by the way. It went from 19 to 18. We talked about this yesterday, TBS. That's a big jump.
It is.
If Adam gets to go off, he can do it for kind of the minimum now.
Right. He only needs 6 land rather than the 7th land or whatever.
Yeah, he'll need the 7th, and then he'll be able to just 18 him exactly, though it may be a moot point if Ely Kassis just goes off. All right, now it looks like we've got some indicators here. So mountains are going to be red mana, islands are going to be blue, and that face-down card is going to be Storm Count.
Yep. So
I like that. Thank you. That's nice. Yes.
It's much better for the audience out there. So yeah. I think Ely thinks he can go off because otherwise he wouldn't have cast that Manamorphose.
Well, he either thinks he can or he thinks he must.
Yeah, that's possible. Right. Though Adam is only on 5 land.
Yeah, that's why I was curious to see, why not just take an extra turn. But like you said, he must feel like, nope, he's got it in his hand and he can just go off here. So 4 red mana, 1 blue, Storm Count of 4. Where do we go from here, Ely?
So he has a Pass of Flames in hand, so he can definitely cast it for 4, still having 1 red mana. But 1 red mana is not really useful, so he actually needs another Ritual. So he has a blue floating.
Yep, and he's got Pass and Flames resolved. Adam's just in observation mode here.
So what Ely's doing is he's just playing the Serum Visions and just not going off.
Is that it?
I think that's it. I think he's out of mana.
Wow.
So
he fizzled there.
He did fizzle, and it was interesting that he actually, it seemed likely that he was going to fizzle casting the Manamorphose. I think what he figures is that his hand is very similar with a Passive Flame in the graveyard. So, casting it doesn't hurt him that much, and it gives him a chance to, dig more into other cards to actually, start off the Storm Count again. Okay.
Is that an omen?
It is an omen, and actually, it's one of the reasons why Ely tried to go off a turn earlier, because the omen actually allows you to go off, I believe, with 5 mana, total, but with 6 also, so a turn earlier than what you expect.
And it also makes that 18 less relevant, as it's capable of, completely blowing the math out of the water here. Prismatic Omen makes all your lands every basic land type. Of course, the relevant type here is that they're all mountains, including Valakits.
Yeah, so
They
Valakut
trigger themselves. It's just silly. Valakits need to see other mountains enter the battlefield, so you can go get a Valakut, which will trigger future lands in this case.
Mm-hmm. So Adam really is kind of representing being able to kill Ely next turn.
Absolutely.
So Ely needs to probably, if he has any path to actually getting to going off this turn, he should probably go for it. But let's see what he's got in his hand.
I mean, he's just going to have to just try to force it with anything he has. If he just doesn't have anything, which he doesn't, he's just not necessarily dead, right? I mean, Adam still has some work to do, but his entire deck is designed to take lands and put them onto the battlefield.
Okay, so Adam has 3 green cards.
Yeah.
He has an Explorer, a Summoner's Pact, and I believe a Farseek.
Yep.
That Summoner's Pact is almost definitely going for a
Prime
time.
Mm-hmm. And that would be lethal.
Yeah, because... Okay.
Here we go. Summoner's Pact goes on the stack. Ely can do nothing.
Right, so...
And we're just going to see a Primeval Titan.
Almost definitely getting 2 Valakuts.
Yep.
And there's already a Valakut in play. So
and
actually...
Adam is all about those promos, by the way. Look at him.
So I actually think this is lethal now.
It is lethal, yep.
Yep.
And that's going to do it. So let's head back to our main match, which just started back underway. This is the Tron Mirror. Good clean fun over here. We saw Julian John fire off Karn on turn 3, take out a Tron piece, and Seth Manfield scoop him up in a game that lasted a grand total of 3 turns. In the first game, let's see if we can't get a little more interaction, perhaps a little more fun.
I'm pretty sure that Julian won because he's playing Antiquities Urza lands, and
I feel like it gave him a decided advantage. And I like Seth Manfield, but come on, Seth.
These are ugly.
These are hideous. These are just literally the strictly worse versions of the ones he's got because they have the right artwork,
right?
But they're white bordered and they're like faded.
So would you prefer the right artwork ones like that Seth is playing? Or, one of the early, ninth edition white border ones.
For people that don't know TBS, he has the best hypotheticals. They're so hard. I guess artwork trumps border.
No, but if you're going to use border, you have to use the real ones.
I love the artwork. Well, you didn't give me that choice. I would have chosen the real
but I'm saying it kind of makes these ones worse because...
These are inauthentic?
Yes.
I do not disagree with you on that point. So,
I want basically for me the oldest printing of a card is the best version. That could make me some sort of old fogey.
You are that.
Okay,
these are Chronicles, right?
I think there's actually some 4th edition or 5th edition ones that also are the original art. I think these ones are Chronicles specifically.
Those are Chronicles because they have the Antiquities.
Oh, that's true.
Set mark, but they're not. Ugh. Let's just say we haven't had a lot to talk about here, but here we are.
So Julian actually tries to disrupt Seth a little bit with a Ghost Quarter on Seth's tower. Julian really punishing him for playing the white border versions. It's like look.
That's how you see it?
Yeah, you got to get these off the table.
Some hard-hitting commentary for sure.
Look, I'm here to make sure that...
Oh, look at this. Chromatic Star into Thought Seize. Perhaps able to take away one of the payoff cards. And we see a Thought Knot Seer. There's an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. He does have a mine as well as 2 forests.
That's
an Oblivion Stone in the middle.
This is not a great hand, actually, by Julian. He doesn't have Tron.
No. He's one piece away, though.
Right, but he doesn't have any way to search for it or no cantrips.
Right.
So right now, he's just needs to draw it off the top. Ulamog doesn't really do anything. The Oblivion Stone is not that great in the mirror, like in general. I mean, you keep it in there because it actually can get you out of situations. Thought Nasir is very good, but also he put himself behind a turn with the Ghost Quarter, so he's 3 turns away from that.
Now Seth is deep in the tank here about what to actually take. He's looking at his hand, and that's what you'll see, professional players do. Is it's not just what's the best card. Like, I think your base level is I'm going to take your best card away, but he's really trying to decide how long does this game go.
Yep.
Like, for example, if Seth's hand is conducive to a long game, he'll take Ulamog, right? Because he can't beat Ulamog in a long game, even though Julian is miles away from casting Ulamog right now.
Yeah, you've got to really figure out exactly how fast your hand is, and
right.
And I can see one white border card in Seth's hand, which means that he's at least a search away or a draw away from.
By the way,
getting to Tron.
We have been corrected by chat, and I think that they're right, reminding us that the third Tron piece is always on top of their library.
Oh, sure, yes.
Right, they just keep it there, and that way they don't... And he just stone cold ripped the tower literally on top of the library.
You can't thought see the top of the deck. Literal thought sees the turn before, and obviously the third Tron piece.
I just can't even. This is just silly.
Oh, and he actually drew a threat, like a really good threat.
He did. He drew a walking ballista.
So it'll actually be interesting which threat he decides to go with, because in the face of the Oblivion Stone, he may not want to go with the Thought Not Seer, because Seth will actually get a card back. Oh, but he does choose to go with it.
All right, there's Thought Not Seer.
Seth does have the Tron covered because there is a Ghost Quarter on his side. He chose not to use it because I think he wanted the option of actually cracking the Oblivion Stone the next turn. That being said, I do think that he's likely to destroy Julian's tower next turn, or this turn. But if the tower's on top of Julian's deck, does that mean that Seth is a power plant away on top of the deck?
I don't know.
I mean, he is number 1 in the world, so is he number 1 at actually drawing Tron pieces? Oh, hold on. Oh, come on.
I don't think that the Tron gods reward white bordered Tron pieces, but it's possible.
Yeah. They are kind of an abomination.
Now, a pair of Wormcoil engines in hand for Seth, but he did actually find a Chromatic Star so he can cast that Thought Seize in his hand.
Oh, he lost it actually from...
did he?
Yeah, from the Thought Not Seer.
Oh, okay, Thought Not Seer took it away, excuse me. Well, that means he gets to just cycle and try to dig.
Yeah. He still has a chance
What's
to
the game plan here, though, right? I mean, getting down a Wormcoil actually looks pretty fine here.
Yeah, it is fine. I mean, I think that Seth, knowing that the top of the deck could have a big mana spell in Julian's side, I think he's going to have to Ghost Quarter, putting himself back quite a lot. So Seth is actually going to basically cast a Relic.
Relic cycle it basically. Yeah, he's just sort of churning through his library trying to find some action. Once the third Tron piece wants to start deploying Wormcoil engines. Easier said than done.
The choice that Seth has is he doesn't really want to use the Ghost Quarter if he thinks that Julian does not have another threat. Like, he's actually only had one draw step other than, that's hidden. Okay, so he actually does it in upkeep. Make sure that there isn't a chance to hit Tron at least, or use the Tron mana during the main phase.
That's right. So he's going to Ghost Quarter that away. It's going to turn into a forest, which, I mean, it's a pretty big difference. Let's be honest.
No, there's a big difference. Also, having those beautiful Antiquities lands next to this land.
The gorgeous forest from John Avon and Unstable.
I do not like these unstable lands.
Grumpy TBS has shown up once again. What do you think is going through Seth's mind right now? He's like, are you kidding me? You turn 3 Tron me Karn and won game 1 on turn 3, and you just ripped a tower both times off the top of the library.
Yeah, I mean, this is like... And also, you know, with that Walking Ballista, Seth does not have that many turns. I mean...
What is going on here?
He can pump twice, hit for 10, and actually kill him next turn. But he does have...
Nature's Claim?
Yep. Does 4.
Yeah, instead of gaining 4, he's going to lose 4. Land go. Well, Seth is still hanging around somehow.
Yeah, I mean, if he is able to actually...
6.
Yeah, if he actually is able to get an untapped land, obviously preferably a Tron piece. Okay, hit one of the 2. This is actually kind of aggressive by Julian because...
Because of that Oblivion stuff?
Yeah, I mean, just one land. He just needs a land. He definitely drew a whitewater card.
He did.
It doesn't matter if it's a Tron piece or not. And it
actually is the power plant as well, so the door is open now. And this is a huge swing. Seth gets to wipe away 2 Thought-Knot Seers, draw 2 cards?
Yeah, no, actually, you know, if we had an advantage bar, I would actually put it on, like, Seth's side of the table because this is a big difference here.
We actually do have one.
We do?
Yeah, it's just... Well, we talked to the bosses, and they don't trust you with it yet.
What?
So,
Oh, come on.
Yeah, you haven't earned the advantage bar.
Keep
working, though. Keep plugging away.
No, come on.
You'll get there one day.
No respect. No respect.
Oblivion Stone gets sacrificed, and this is a disaster for Julian.
Yeah, this is really bad because on top of it all...
how does he play that Thought Knot into the Oblivion Stone?
I honestly think he wanted to make sure that he was lethal the next turn. So he was kind of like guessing.
He was like, draw an untapped land right now or you're dead.
Right. And I think that
is aggressive.
And, you know, Julian's 12-1, so maybe he's found that being aggressive is a little bit better, but that's a huge risk. There's a lot of lands that come into play untapped. Pretty much everything except the Blooming Marshes. So I would say almost a third of Seth's deck would probably turn on that Oblivion Stone. Now Julian has to worry about the Wormcoil engine in Seth's hand because he knows that because he saw it from the Thought-Knot Seer. There has been a lot of top decking of Tron lands this game.
Right, where's the big payoffs, though?
Yep, well, nothing so far. I think Seth really hopes he could draw a Karn. I mean, Karn is the best card to cast.
Yeah, any of the big planeswalkers are great. I mean, honestly, the Wormcoil engines are the lesser threats that we, not even that good.
Yeah,
there's some decks, of course, that if you connect once with a Wormcoil engine, they have, almost basically all the creature decks are just like, no, they can't attack into it.
They're really obviously it's resilient too. Putting the 2/3/3s if you actually, are able to destroy the engine. Okay, so Julian is thinking of something. I'm not sure if they're. He looks like he might be actually asking us something of the judge. He's not looking at his hand. And I think there's something about those cards at the top of the deck.
Which ones are exiled or something?
Well, right, okay. So some of the cards that were in the exiled area were in the graveyard?
Or were accidentally got exiled, perhaps.
So we just fix that up.
I
Not
suppose
too bad.
so.
Julian's searching for Sanctum Ugin, but that kind of implies to me that he doesn't actually have the threat unless maybe he has an Ugin. Because he can... Oh, no, he has a Karn.
Yeah, it's weird. I remember that some of Seth Manfield's graveyard was exiled to the Relic. I felt like it was more than just 2 cards.
Yeah.
Now, also, Is there something? Is it relevant?
I don't think it's that relevant.
Okay. I don't want to get down some rabbit hole, but obviously I want the board state to be correct. Also,
Yeah, I don't think they actually have anything that can actually return them.
Yeah, there was definitely more than just a Thoughtseize and a Worm Coil in the yard when it went, though. I don't actually remember what else was there offhand and what's been added to the graveyard in between. I feel like it was most of those cards, though.
Yeah, I mean, but they kind of realize it. So
yeah.
in any case, it's probably not too relevant. And
yeah, I don't think that they're going to be digging through the graveyards of Seth Manfield anytime soon. So we'll just have to kind of sit here.
So anyway, the Oblivion Stone on Julian's side actually. Not as great versus the Wormcoil engine.
It's really not.
It does fog for a turn, so that's one thing. But really, I think, we still have a lot. We still really, really need one of the big Planeswalkers to make a big difference here. Seth trying to kind of, entice Julian to sacrifice his Oblivion Stone, it would actually reduce the power on the table by two. In any case, two attacks, full attacks, will actually beat Julian, though he gets to kind of get an effective fog for one of them.
And it does leave him with, another Oblivion Stone as a potentially good out. But really, it's just been a kind of a weird game because the players exchanged resources early, which left them haymakerless.
Yes.
And we have not seen Ugin or Karn or, one of these just, Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, like you see in the Exile Zone down there, just come down and say, this game's just over.
So one of the things I think was a big turning point was Julian playing that extra Thought Not Seer. And we talked about it at the time, but I think, while I often really like taking the aggressive line, I think that one is just way too all in and way too much kind of, gave Seth a chance of really turning the game completely. Like if he just kept that Thought Not Seer in his hand.
Seth is forced to use, he goes, I'm going to attack you. Now Seth, could say, okay, I'll take it, I'll go to 2. It is a couple of extra turns, right. But having a Thought Not Seer after Seth is forced to use the Oblivion Stone. Oh boy, you take away something great, you put out a great threat.
Yeah, for sure. Just because he got the card back too, I think that's another reason.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's the haymaker we've all been looking for. It's Ulamog. It's time for lunch.
That's right.
And he's going to take out 2 Tron pieces, leaving Julian without the ability to get Tron next turn, even if he were to top deck.
It's like, try and top deck this.
Right, and of course, this is the chain of events that will lead Seth Manfield to win this game. I am really impressed. Seth was way behind.
Way behind.
Julian extended perhaps a little bit too much. Seth was able to take advantage of it, and he's just plugged away here. Now it was Sanctum of Movin getting sacrificed. Now there's a World Breaker in hand for Manfield, and there's no way that Julian's going to come back from this.
Yeah, this is just academic right now, but
really impressive though.
Just kind of, there was interaction here. There was like decisions made that were impactful for the game, so it's really important to, with these matches, it seems like whoever gets to do X first wins. No, actually, there's a lot of choices.
Yeah, you also have ways to prevent them from doing that thing, and that also happened here. We saw Thoughtseize and Thought Not Seer.
Okay, Seth gets into the red zone, and then immediately Julian decides that he wants to go to game 3.
I guess we'll join them. So what's going to happen now?
Well,
somebody's going to get Tron and win the game on turn 3 again, or are we going to see a game like that actually had some interactions, some kind of cool plays, some risks taken by some of the players?
Yeah, I think still the most likely situation is actually who gets Tron first. Okay. There's so many ways for this deck to actually get there,
and make it almost impossible for the other player to come back.
Yeah,
right?
I mean
that's the thing.
Right,
it's just like the door shut so quickly. It looks like we're in game 2 here. Adam Pannone is playing against Kassis. We saw Adam win the first game with Scapeshift. He used the Omen, the Prismatic Omen,
Yeah, so
to power out the win in the first game, where Ely actually fizzled. He tried to go off and didn't. He just failed and had to pass a turn back, and that was his demise.
yeah, I think it was a lightning bolt that actually targeted Baral and kind of put Ely in a really tight spot, and Ely decided to try and go off at least partially. But this time, Ely is actually able to untap with Baral, and I think usually most of the games that I've played and seen with Storm, if you can untap with 3 or 4 mana with a cost reducer and they don't have a way of interacting with it, you're pretty likely to win. Like,
would you modify that if I told you that the opponent had the ability to exile your graveyard?
I would modify that somewhat, but actually it doesn't have to be too... I mean, the relic does hurt, no doubt.
Okay.
And it seems pretty clear to me that Ely has quite a stock graveyard. I can see it. It's just off screen right now, but he does have a few.
All he did is play Electromancer and pass here, TBS.
Yeah.
Not good news for Ely. He's sitting in 11-2, as well as his opponent. And you know what that means? This is effectively an elimination match. The player who advances may be able to take a draw into the top 8, but at least will be able to fight for their spot and control their own destiny, where the loser is going to have to say how many pro points and money can I get if I win the next round, but no top 8.
Yeah, I mean, so I think where Ely wants to be, after sideboarding, a lot of these Storm decks, they sideboard into pieces of the puzzle, which, allows you to essentially draw or search for 2 pieces of the puzzle, almost literally. And what that allows you to do is to actually, get to a critical mass of spells to go off. And I think that's exactly what Ely would love to draw, or hopefully maybe he has in his hand. Pieces of the puzzle, especially with 2 cost reducers, only cost 1. And he may not need to use the graveyard at all to get there. But it looks like, okay, so he has...
Super Chief gifts. Being reduced by 2 different effects.
That's what I'm going to get you for Christmas.
Super cheap gifts. That's not your style, TBS.
It's true. Have you been naughty or nice?
I've been pretty nice.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's see what he finds here.
So he basically should be getting pieces that allow him to go off without having to use the graveyard. I mean, he does have a passive flavor in hand, but that relic is going to put the kibosh on going that route. It's possible that, Ely might try and entice Adam to sacrifice it and then try and go off after that, but that's really tough. You essentially have to go off twice. I'd be shocked if he doesn't go for 1 piece of the puzzle if he still has it in his deck. He actually has a wipe away. Okay. This is actually an interesting one. So empty the Warrens, wipe away another gifts and a Metamorphose. So none of them are real combo pieces, except for
what is he setting up here?
I think what he's trying to do is, if he gets either wipe away or empty the Warrens, that's his plan. He's playing either one of them. Like, wipe away would actually just be able to bounce the relic before, and with split second he actually can't sacrifice it. So that would be one of the options. Because what he could do, actually, Adam could actually give him a wipe away and then sacrifice the relic right now before he untaps. Actually, no, he put wipe away and something in the graveyard.
Yeah. So he gave him the empty.
Yeah. Okay. So now that this is his plan. His plan is basically try and empty, put enough power on the table maybe for 1 or 2 turns. I think he gave him...
We're just on the beatdown plan here. Just tell me if that's the case, TV. If it's just keep attacking him for 2 or 3 damage.
I mean, it's pretty clear that Adam doesn't actually have the kill. I mean, he has plenty of mana, so he would have gone for something if he had one of the better spells. But I think now he's going to cast Pass and Flames, basically trying to entice Adam to have to relic here, and he will. He's almost definitely going to. Funnily enough, it actually helps Ely a little bit by being one of the spells if he chooses to go the empty the Warrens route this turn. Okay, so what Ely is doing is actually responding to the Past in Flames.
And trying to stock up that yard again.
Right, and Ritual is exactly what he wants.
I mentioned it before, by the way. The island is going to be blue mana, the mountain's going to be red, and the upside down card is your storm count. So just for those of you playing along at home, you 6/6 storm players, you can you can keep up with what Ely's doing here, and we can as well.
I actually think that Ely is going to be able to go off here for a reasonable amount. Like, as in, he probably is. He's probably going to be able to put a lethal amount of goblins into play for next turn. So, that being said, a single mountain changes that, and actually, Adam has a windswept heath that actually can bolt down a creature, probably the Electromancer, with the most power.
Okay.
So we're on 5 spells. There's going to be even more from the graveyard. So I think Ely's trying to figure out, is there a way of actually getting up? Because I think he has a Grape Shot in hand too. So I wonder if he might be trying to just Grape Shot him and killing him this turn. I believe Ely has 3 cards, a Dispel, a Grape Shot, and an Empty. I'm not sure if he has a Dispel. It looked like he had a Dispel, but I find it a little bit tough that he brought it in. It just seems fairly unlikely, but maybe that's not true. Okay, so Ely's going to do 6 damage to Adam with his Grape Shot.
Okay.
And then after that...
That can't be the end of the story, though, right?
No, but the story will end with a empty.
An empty for a lot.
Yeah.
Looks like the storm counts at 7.
Oh, no, he
flashed it back?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, this makes more sense. He's
so
able
explain what happened there.
So he had like 3 more mana left. We saw earlier, or 4 more mana left. He cast the Past in Flames. So what he's going to do is like cast the Grape Shot, do 6 damage to Adam, then recast the Past in Flames, and then recast the Grape Shot he just cast it before. And because he has 2 cost reducers in play, he actually has enough mana to be able to do that. So he actually Grape Shots for 6 and 8.
Plenty enough. All right, this is the one. This could be a fun game, or this could be like the first game.
I mean,
it's the race to Tron,
yeah.
Right? Let's see, taking a look at the opening hands, the players are going to be thinking, all right, I'd like to have Tron as soon as possible. Does this hand help me do that? And also thinking to themselves, what if my opponent has Tron on, 4?
Right.
Right? Like, if your opponent has Tron on turn 3 and you don't, you assume you're going to lose, but...
Julian's in the play, and that's actually very important. I think that, obviously it makes the turn 3 Tron basically unbeatable if you're on the play. Julian's thinking a lot, so I figured that maybe he's not looking at his hand anymore. No, Seth is the one who decides to mulligan.
I couldn't quite see his hand there, but I would bet that Seth's hand would fall under the normal definition of keepable, but did not have an early Tron or whatever,
right,
where if he just gets Tron, he knows if he can't do it, he knows that it's going to put him at such a big disadvantage, so he's being a little extra picky, knowing the matchup, knowing what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, so I can definitely see a tower. So we have 1/3 of the pieces in Julian's hand. And look, Seth, one of the best, if not the best right now. Obviously, he has a number 1 next to his name. He's the most recent Proto Champion. Has a good shot of making the Hall of Fame with the next ballot.
I'm voting for him. That guy's been smashing it since I started doing coverage at every level he plays at.
No, yeah, and Seth super nice guy on top of that too. So good ambassador for the game. So, but what I was going to follow up with is, I think he's really, really aware about his opponent's capabilities turn-wise, and so he's going to be aggressive with his mulliganing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so turn 1, Julian has produced an Urza's Tower, and there's a power plant for Manfield. They both play 1-drops that don't do anything as far as Tron goes, but
funnily enough,
talk.
If my opponent actually plays a tower first, I think they don't have Tron.
Okay.
Because tower is the best land. It produces 3.
Mm-hmm.
Usually what you'll do is you'll sandbag your tower at the end, just to protect it against something like a Ghost Quarter or something like that. And so if you lead with a tower, it's very likely that you don't have the rest of the pieces.
Yeah, but it's also Tron, so he just finds them. And that's
sure.
turn 3 Tron.
That is turn 3 Tron.
Now, he will not be able to go off on turn 3. Like, we will not be seeing a Karn on turn 3, for example.
Right.
But Julian John has assembled on the play. He will have all 3 Tron pieces in play. And there's tower, power plant, and a map. So both players are going to have the exact same scenario, which is turn 3 Tron, although with tap lands.
Yes. They'll have access to two mana because both of them actually have a 3 and a 2 out, so they'll have 2 after that.
That's right. Again, and this is another reason, by the way, that you were talking about the tower.
Yeah.
You'd prefer to play it last because you could tap your first 2 Tron lands to crack the map and then play tower for 3, where you could cast an Oblivion Stone or something that costs 3 rather than 2. Now, but again, and I think your read was right that they didn't have it, but that doesn't mean that they won't, as you can see here.
That's right. So also what we're getting to now is it's about haymakers. Both of them have their mana set up. Julian's going to be able to have first access to 7 or 8 mana on turn 4. If there's no Karn, the first Karn wins. So if Julian does not have Karn, he'll play something. Pretty much everything else can be answered. If Seth has a Karn and Julian does not, the advantage goes all the way to Seth.
All right, well, Julian's setting up for an explosive turn next turn, but he's doing effectively nothing this turn. Passes it back to Seth. Now, Seth could also just cold rip Tron. Let's not forget that. Right? There's a world here where he just goes, Tron piece, Karn, kill your tower, and effectively the game's over.
Yep, that's right.
Now, if that isn't the case, then he has the backup plan of the expedition map or whatever else he wants to do here.
Looks like he's going to actually sacrifice his mana.
And being on the play here looks pretty good for Julian.
Okay, now
he's going to have 9 mana on his turn, and it might end the game.
Right. One of the things that 9 mana gets you is...
Oh, we're going to see Thoughtseize here, aren't we?
Oh, that's actually... Yeah. This is the difference in the matches, too.
Yes. So Seth Manfield has used his expedition map to search up a Blooming Marsh, and obviously Tron would be the number 1 priority for him, but he knows he may just be dead. Like, if Julian's hand is, land, whatever, Oblivion Stone Karn, he's actually in okay shape here with the Thoughtseize.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But if we see 2 major threats that Julian can cast, it could be the end of the game as well. So this is a big moment in this game. Here we go.
Okay.
What do you got? There is a Karn.
I like how he's hidden the Karn behind the tower.
It's hiding behind Urza's Tower.
Maybe
and now it's hiding behind a Thought Knot. So, you know what? His hand was kind of similar. It was land and then a Sylvan Scrying rather than another land. But he did have the Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, so...
And he's going to go ahead and be able to take away the Karn.
Right.
And that definitely could completely change the way this game plays out. Now, the interesting part is Seth really needed to give up a lot to do that. He used his expedition map to get a Blooming Marsh. He does not have Tron now.
And I wonder if he actually has... No, if he had Tron, he would just cast it, I think.
Well, unless he didn't have a threat.
Right. Yeah,
we haven't got a good look at his hand. Like, if he had Tron piece Karn, of course, but, he might have Ugin and a Tron piece or
that's
something
true.
like that, too. He also may not have either and just thought, I'm dead. If sure, I have Tron, but if he goes Karn, I don't have Tron, and the game has effectively ended. So,
and he was right.
And he was totally right. This is super cool. We get a really good game 3 here. Game 1, not as good. But these next 2 have been pretty cool.
Yeah, the mirror matches are games of inches.
You and your mirror matches.
I love the mirror matches. I'm going to go for Seth because Blooming Marsh is, that's where they make blooming onions, right?
That's where blooming onions are grown?
I mean, that's what they teach us in Australian school.
Never thought of that. All right, so look at this hand here from Manfield. Yeah, look at this. He just straight up said, I cannot lose here. I have to bite the bullet, use my map to not get Tron and go get a Blooming Marsh, because look at his hand. Wormcoil, Oblivion Stone, and a pair of Sylvan Scrines. Now, the good news is that the Marsh, well, that does enable him to get Tron over the course of the next 2 turns, thanks to Sylvan Scrine. And that will be powerful for him because he has 2 of them, and John can't thought not seer away one and still prevent him from doing that. So as long as Julian doesn't draw an absolute haymaker, a Ulamog or something like that, Seth is going to be able to kind of calmly deploy a pair of Wormcoil engines, which are a problem. Those are a pain.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost definitely going to... Oh, taking the Oblivion Stone.
Interesting.
That is interesting. I think
protecting his thought knot.
Yeah, I think he figures that he cannot actually defend against one Wormcoil, and the second one doesn't make that much difference. Mm-hmm. I think the plan for Julian now is to actually put a fate counter on his Thought Knot Seer, and then whatever Seth decides to put into play, he's going to stone away.
It's just that it's going to be a Wormcoil engine, and that does not work.
But his Thought Knot Seer can block at least one of the
lifelink.
Yeah, the lifelink one after the search. Though he does have another Wormcoil engine.
Yeah, this is not looking great for Julian John, but they can change with any really powerful top deck could easily completely change this game. Another Karn would be nice. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Ulamog a minute ago. He's got 3, 5, 7, 9 mana, so he'd need a Tron piece to Ulamog, a land, but
so.
Yeah, Seth, that was his draw step for the turn, was this Expedition map.
Yeah. Almost definitely going to get a Sanctum of Vugan, just so he can... Essentially, that's the best way to get a threat by searching for a land.
Let's see what Julian found. He's attacking for 4, but he knows that there's Wormcoils coming on the next 2 turns. Does Julian find something huge to cast here?
Nope, 6... His own?
Kind of. Yeah. Okay. I mean, these all sort of cancel each other out.
They do.
But he's the one with Oblivion Stone.
Right. And he can protect it.
Mm-hmm.
Like with a fate counter or something like that. So he could actually have the bigger one remain.
There's a Sanctum of Vugan that you just mentioned a second ago, TBS. Now, why is he going to go get that?
I mean, basically, it's about a game of threats. And as we were saying before, it's all about haymakers and... Julian actually has answers to some of the haymakers. So what Sanctum of Vugan allows him to do is to essentially have another threat if he happens to be able to answer the first couple. It's really the only threat that you can search for with a land searcher. Used to actually be able to find Eye of Vugan, but that card got banned, and so this is the next best thing. Okay.
Cycle this, float a mana. Ooh, he found Ancient Stirrings here,
yep.
man.
The funny thing is, Karn is not quite good enough right now because the stone means that Karn is not going to be too great.
Oh, God. Well, how about Relic of Progenitus? Not what Seth wanted to hit here.
No.
That is at least it's another card, but it's just, pretty close to a miss.
Yeah, no, it's not impactful whatsoever.
Also, Seth with the good read there, he must have made green with the Chromatic Star. It worked out for him.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Almost definitely going to be playing out one of his 2 Wormcoils.
Right.
Go. see some fake counter action, I think.
I think you're right.
The funny thing is the fake counters actually work no matter which stone it came from. So if Seth rips a stone, it will, like Julian's...
That's weird.
Yeah. And actually, one of the funny things is if you rip a stone, you can actually put a fake counter on your own Oblivion Stone, which protects against opponents' Oblivion Stones.
Ooh, here's another Thanatos here off the top for Julian.
Yeah, really good, actually,
it's
here.
It's going to take away the second Worm Coil, and the resources are starting to get a little meager here for Manfield. He's got effectively a cycling card in his hand with the Relic, but the Sylvan Scrying's simply going to get him more mana.
Yeah,
and I assume that the Worm Coil goes away here.
I actually think
he's getting pretty far behind, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's not actually that many cards that can bring him back because the Oblivion Stone is no good against the other Oblivion Stone because he can save things with fate counters. Karn is no good because Oblivion Stone can kill Karn, so it's like that's a one-off thing, and that's not good enough on this board. And I mean, I think Ulamog is the only card that I can really think of being hugely impactful here.
Who is a land off the top for Manfield?
Yep.
He does get to cycle this Relic, though.
Yep.
So crack this, and he needs to find something big time here.
Yeah. He can find any colorless card that costs 7 or more because he can search for it with Sanctum of Ugin. It will take 2 turns, but he may have enough turns. It's kind of tough to figure out. It's possible that Julian's just going to fate more creatures. He knew he lost by like the 2 Thought Knots his last game, so he's pretty careful about putting fate counters on those ones.
Yeah, it feels like Seth is going to need to find an Ulamog quickly here.
Yeah, I actually think he has 1 turn. I mean, just because of how the...
Yeah, I mean, he is technically facing lethal damage, though his Worm Coil, theoretically should be able to hold that off.
I think if I was Seth, I'd just take it. Oh, if you block... what the block does is it obviously cashes in both players get tokens, but Julian can just blow them away and then attack for 8 the next turn, or put a fate counter on one of the tokens and then attack for 11.
Now Seth should have gained life there, though, right?
Yes, actually,
should
you're right.
Back at 20.
Yeah, no, 20 and 26 actually. So we'll just make sure that the match actually knows that. Yep, there we go.
Death Touch Worm's going to go ahead and send in. Julian's just going to trade off Lifelink Worm for Death Touch Worm. And there's another Worm Coil engine. Okay, that was the draw step there for Manfield. He can play a land and play Sylvan Scrying, though it looks like he's declined to do so. Any reason to not play Sylvan Scrying there?
I don't think there's any reason to do it other than maybe protect your hand to a Karn discard.
Yeah, he's just keeping it in his hand in case. It's a pretty, it feels like if Julian drew Karn here, another way to protect your hand from Karn discard is to just not have one.
Yeah. Well, though, I mean, if he draws another card, I can't really justify it.
He can cast anything in his deck and would. I don't know. I'm with you.
But, I mean, again, if we had an advantage bar, if I was able to use it, I know I'm not allowed to, but yeah.
You're still working your way up the chain.
Okay. But I would put it about 3/4 of the way towards the end for Julian.
And Julian John sitting at 12-1.
Yeah, no,
this
will lock him.
Up lock.
Yeah, it will lock him at least for a slot, for a Pro Tour invite, which super valuable. I'm not sure if Julian's ever played on the Pro Tour, but if he hasn't, I mean, the first one's always the hardest. It actually kind of cascades from there. Not only do you get more shots at playing at the Pro Tour, but there's some sort of mental barrier often with getting your first qualification. Okay, so... Oh, okay, this is actually a good reason to actually keep the Sylvan Scrying in hand. So what happens is Julian's actually drawn a ghost quarter,
Okay.
and
Now
Seth
can retron.
right, he could retron, and he didn't know which one he should tron for. So, like, let's say he tron for a tower, then Julian would have gone for the mine. So the smart thing is to just keep it in hand, so you know which one you need.
By the way, a little update. You see, we reset our clock at the top there. It had hit zeros, but they had received a short time extension of some sort. That is correct, though. Now they've got 10 seconds left until extra turns are going to be called.
Yeah, it actually looks like, it might be close. I think Julian should be able to win in turns.
Got to grind through a worm coil engine.
Okay, so
that's his task. And Seth's window for drawing big haymakers like Ulamog has really started to close on him.
Yeah, I actually don't think Seth has enough turns to win the game anymore, unless he actually has Ulamog in his hand. And I actually don't think he does, because the way he tapped, he didn't tap a 1 mana land, he tapped a potential 2 mana land. So, and 29 life on Julian's side is actually pretty hard to get to.
Oh, we know how Ulamog rolls, though.
It's true.
Lunchtime. I'm going to eat some books.
Speaking of books, you animated your library earlier this weekend.
I did. Yeah, and Seth just seems to only be finding redundant ways to keep Tron enabled, which has not been a problem for him this game. He's just going to get a ghost quarter.
And he has a way, he can actually break up.
He can hit the mine.
Yep. So,
but it's the board that's the problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, he still will have six mana available to him,
and 2 Thought-Knot Seers and
Yeah. I mean, Seth definitely knows he's lost the game. Oh, sorry, he can't win. He hasn't lost. Okay, I think this is going to be turn 1 coming up now. Here we go.
A fate counter on his own Oblivion Stone. That is your turn counter, apparently. That die in the middle of the battlefield there.
Ooh, I think he might draw Ulamog.
What do you think he drew?
Ulamog.
Sure. We could just close the door on this thing.
But the thing is, with this Ghost Quarter, unless he actually has another mine, I'm not positive he drew Ulamog. It looked like it. I saw it for a split second. I'm pretty sure that would, especially if he had another Tron land, another mine. I mean, okay. He's casting the Sylvan Scrying to get his Tron back, luckily. Oh no, he actually has the. Oh no, it's interesting. I wonder if he. Yeah, here's the mine. Okay.
Go.
Yeah.
Turn 2. Land go from Seth Manfield, and there's no way he's winning this one.
Yep. Now I wonder if Julian actually can win here. Because, as you said before, that Wormcoil engine is actually pretty bad for him. I actually think that now it's likely to be a draw, just given the situation.
What does that mean, do you think?
The draw?
Yeah, Seth would be picking up his second draw. Julian, with only 1 loss, certainly has a draw to give here.
Yeah, I actually think that it might knock Seth out of contention. Julian still will be definitely in contention.
May have to play next round.
Yeah, it's like 1,400 players, like 14 odd. I think possible that someone at just under 39 points, maybe 38 points, which is what Seth would do if he won all the remaining rounds.
The remaining round,
Yeah,
as it were.
it's a long day. Okay.
Well, it's not over yet, buddy. We aren't even in the top 8.
Okay. I think Seth wanted to force the action by playing the wall breaker on the
Oblivion Stone.
and it's a little bit interesting thing. So the killing of the Oblivion Stone, the trigger actually happens when World Breaker is cast.
Yeah.
And what that means is, a lot of these effects usually when they come into play, and so you can use the Oblivion Stone to actually kill the thing that's doing that. But because it's on the cast trigger for World Breaker,
Look
can't.
at that.
Yeah.
Man, he used Ancient Strange to find Ulamog, but with Seth at 20, there's no way he's going to be able to get in for enough damage.
Yeah.
He's only got 11 power on the battlefield, and even if no blockers, it wouldn't be enough. And Seth has 3 blockers, so he's doing fine. Julian's just showing off a little here, but this is turn number 5 of extra turns, and this is going to be a draw here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's thinking that he might be able to get a Karn.
Man, I can't believe they got a draw this game. Do you remember how quickly game 1 went? It ended on turn 3. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's
like the game 1 wasn't even a real thing.
And the thing is, like, I guess this game didn't feel like it was played particularly slow. It wasn't like the fastest game I've ever seen, but
I just don't understand how we got to this point.
Okay, so he's actually able to clear it away, but he's going to have an extra turn. He's going to be down a turn.
You can only hit him for 11 still, or 12, I guess, technically with the ballista. But at any rate, it is not lethal. He's going to have to pass it back, and these players are going to be in a draw situation. They're going to shake hands on the draw. So 11, 1, and 2 for Manfield.
Yeah, no, I think.
Let's see what he writes down. Yeah,
No,
it's a draw.
It's a draw, and I think it makes sense for Julian to want the draw there.
Oh yeah, he's still primed for a top 8 here.
I think Seth was saying, well, I'm out.
Yep. So Seth, though, has to play his last round. He's going to see if he can remain with just 1 loss on his record, but the 2 draws may be enough to either get him in or get him out of top 8. We'll keep an eye on it. But for now, these messages.